So fellas, this weekend we've got UFC 311, which I'll go out and say is probably the most stacked pay-per-view we've had since UFC 300. Ridiculously stacked from top to bottom, from the prelims to the main card. And of course, we're going to be predicting every fight on UFC 311, as well as my own personal little parlay at the end. And also the keys to victory for each fighter after every kind of prediction. And we'll start off with the first fight on the card, which is going to be Tagir Ulanbekov taking on undefeated Clayton Carpenter. Tagir Ulanbekov, as you'd expect, heavy grappling style, likes to initiate the grappling, and he's done that against good grapplers like Cody Durden. Very good pressure wrestler, likes initiating the grappling. That is mainly his keys, his game plan to winning the fight. And he also trains with the likes of Khabib Nurmagomedov, aka. So he's got a good team around him. He's had quite some success in the UFC so far. Going to be taking on undefeated Clayton Carpenter, who's also quite a good wrestler in himself. Very, very pressure wrestling style that he's just recently shown in the UFC, as well as also having a decent striking background to back it up. So I can understand why the UFC are quite high on Clayton Carpenter and why they're giving him a big step up in competition, but I personally think this is quite a big step up. I mean, in your third UFC fight, you're facing Tagir Ulanbekov, who's ranked, I think he's number 12 in the division, and he's way more experienced than you. I've got to go with Ulanbekov to win this one by decision. It's not a super confident pick, though. I don't think Ulanbekov is a big prospect. I mean, the guy couldn't get past Tim Elliott. He hasn't looked amazing in the UFC when he faces someone of, good caliber. But I just think when it comes to the experience, when it comes to the grappling, when it comes to everything, Clayton Carpenter, I would have liked to see him get maybe one more fight. He's gone from fighting nobody's in the flyweight division to a big ranked fight. So I'm trusting that Tagir Ulanbekov's going to get this done. Not a super confident pick, not one that I'll be worth, well, not the one that's worth betting on, but I'm leaning towards Ulanbekov getting the decision win, just doing the more with the grappling and maybe initiating the grappling first. Now, the keys to victory for both of these guys, for Tagir Ulanbekov, it is to initiate the grappling before him. I truly believe whoever's going to initiate the grappling and come with a grappling heavy approach first will probably have the success with the grappling for the majority of the fight. Strike at range but close the distance. Tagir Ulanbekov's good at striking at range. It's when it gets up close and when it gets exchanged in the pocket, that's when he tends to struggle more. And don't make it a dogfight. Carpenter's a dangerous striker. He's got actually some solid boxing, so you don't want to be standing and banging with this guy. And for Clayton Carpenter, again, initiate the grappling before him. I really do feel like whoever initiates the grappling first will have more success. High pressure when striking, get him on his back foot so the takedowns are less effective. We'll kind of force him into a dogfight and dictate the pace of the fight. You want it to be a high-paced fight where you're the one controlling the distance, you're the one getting up close, letting him on his back foot. So those are the keys to victory, but I am going to go with Clayton. I'm going to go with Tagir Ulanbekov by decision. Then we've got Ricky Turcios against Bernado Sopaj. Now, Bernado, I'm gonna go with Bernado Sopaj to win this one by decision. It's not with too much confidence because the only highlight reel this guy's had in the UFC is him getting brutally knocked out by Vinicius Oliveira early this year, where he got a flying knee KO'd by Oliveira. But to be fair to Sopaj, Oliveira is now a prospect in the UFC, and that was on short notice. I think it was on like a week's notice against Vinicius Oliveira, so you can't hit him on that too much. And he's still very talented. He's a very dangerous guy. He's only had one decision win in his entire career, and even against Vinicius Oliveira, he did well with the offensive wrestling early on. He looked quite good on the feet as well against the striker in Oliveira. It was only the gas tank that kind of let Sopaj down, and now he's against Ricky Turcios, who, I mean, he's not the most high-level fighter. He's recently got submitted by Raul Rosas Jr. He lost to Ayman Sahabi, which isn't bad, but he hasn't really got any great wins on his UFC career. He's a bit crazy as well. He's a bit of a crazy kind of style. It's hard to kind of see how good Ricky Turcios is because we don't really know what levels he's at. He's losing to guys who are pretty good and then beating guys who aren't really, UFC worthy, like in his most recent win. But I'm going to go with Sopaj. Really good boxer. I'm sure he's a lot more prepared this time around, and he's got the wrestling to back it up. I think he's more well-rounded, and I think on the feet is where he's got the best chance. Could even get a knockout, but I'm going to go with the safe option, which is a decision. Now, the keys to victory for Ricky Turcios is to prioritize volume. You're not going to outland this guy in terms of, well, you might outland him, but you're not going to get the better in terms of power. So prioritize volume striking and stay cautious on the feet so they all get knocked out. And for Sopaj, pressure boxing against Ricky Turcios, get him on his back foot, outbox him, and capitalize on his weirdness. He's quite a weird striker as Ricky Turcios, very crafty. So capitalize on that with the counters. That is the keys to victory, but I'm going to go with Sopaj by decision. Then we've got Rinya Nakamura versus Muin Gafurov. I'm going to go with Rinya Nakamura to win this one by decision. He could have got a finish. I was originally going to pick him to get a finish in this fight, but I think Muin Gafurov is definitely the toughest test for Rinya Nakamura so far, and Rinya Nakamura hasn't really been able to get the best finishing ability in his past couple of opponents, so I'm going to go and pick him to win by decision. Again, another heavy wrestling style from Rinya Nakamura in this fight. He likes to take the fight to the mat, and he's shown that in his UFC career so far. Very talented wrestler, but he's also got the knockout power on the feet to back it up. He might not be the best when it comes to a technical standpoint on the feet, but from a power perspective, hits very hard, and he does a really good job at mixing up the striking with the grappling, which is why I'm going to pick him to beat Muin Gafurov. And Muin Gafurov's not had the best UFC career so far. He got submitted by Said Nurmagomedov on short notice, which isn't shameful. And he also lost to Castaneda. And his only win is over Kang. And even in that fight against Kang, there was times when Kang was having the better of him in the grappling exchanges, which is not a good look. So I'm going to go with Rinya Nakamura. I'm still not, entirely sure if Muin Gafurov's UFC worthy. Rinya Nakamura is this big prospect from Japan. I really do feel like this fight has been put on to push Rinya Nakamura. And this is a confident pick. Rinya Nakamura by decision. I think he takes him down, controls him for the majority of the fight. Could even get the knockout on the feet if he lands correctly. But Gafurov's not a bad kickboxer, but I'm going to go with Rinya Nakamura to win this one by decision. Then the keys to victory for Rinya Nakamura, it's to take him down and control him like he normally does, and mixing the striking with the takedowns. You've got power on the feet. If you can get the respect early on in the fight with the power, then maybe use that to mix up the grappling with the striking. And when you're on top, you're a much better grappler, damaging with ground and pound. Don't just lay there and try and get points with control. And for Muin Gafurov, it's to keep the fight standing and outstrike him. You ain't going to win in the grappling exchange. Just keep the fight on the feet and outstrike him, and be prepared for the takedowns, which kind of goes without saying when you're facing Rinya Nakamura. But I'm going to go with Rinya Nakamura by decision. That's a confident pick, but he could even get a finish. But Rinya Nakamura. Then we've got Karol Rosa versus Ailin Perez. I'm going with the underdog in this fight with Karol Rosa. I'm pretty sure she's an underdog anyway. I don't know how big of an underdog she is, but I know most people are going to go with Ailin Perez, but I'm going to go with Karol Rosa. If you look at her record recently, she's only really losing recently to fighters that, pretty good caliber. Irene Aldana, former title challenger. Norma Dumont is going to be fighting for a belt in a couple of fights, and apart from that, she's pretty much been getting past everyone she's facing. And you look at the past couple of wins and the winning streak that Ailin Perez is on, there's like at least three cans on there. Ashley Evans-Smith, Pudilova, Zelensiakova, all of these guys are cans. Jocelyn Edwards was a good win, but Jocelyn Edwards can't grapple to save her life. And on top of that, Karol Rosa looked good on the feet against Norma Dumont. There was a time where she dropped Norma Dumont on the feet and did a lot of damage as well. So I'm going to go with Karol Rosa to win this one by decision. I think she's the far superior striker. Ailin Perez is not that good of a striker. Now, obviously, the grappling is the main talk when it comes to Ailin Perez. She's a very heavy grappler, but it isn't like Karol Rosa's got bad takedown defense. She's been competing in quite a lot of grappling competitions recently. She's shown good takedown defense in previous fights, and it seems like she only really struggles when she faces a striker who's better than her. And even in those fights, she's making it a competitive fight on the feet. So I'm going to go with Karol Rosa by decision. I think this is quite a favourable matchup. She's going to keep the fight on the feet and quite simply outstrike Ailin Perez, who hasn't had any insanely impressive wins out of her 4-fight winning streak. In terms of the keys to victory for Karol Rosa, it's to keep the takedown defense on point. If she does get taken down, that's where she's in a bit of a trouble. Pressure strike, and again, just simply outstrike Ailin Perez, who hasn't really got the best striking, and kind of has to rely on the takedown to win the fight. And then for Ailin Perez, it's to feint up top and shoot the takedowns, and just to make it an ugly fight. You don't want to make it a technical fight with Karol Rosa because she'll pick you apart and probably knock you out. To make it ugly, get the clinch work in, and obviously try and take the fight to the mat. But I'm going to go with the underdog in this fight, Karol Rosa, to knock a decision. Then we've got Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira, a really good fight. I'm going to go and say this is probably the best fight, the fight between the two best unranked lightweights right now, the two best unranked guys at 155. Grant Dawson was ranked a few weeks ago, and the only reason he's not ranked anymore is because they decided to put Yoel Alvarez in the rankings. But Grant Dawson, very wrestling heavy style, just like a lot of guys in this card, likes to wrestle. Probably one of the best wrestling prospects at 155, to be fair, and he's done that to every single one of his opponents. He's out-wrestled every single one of them and taken every single one of them down, apart from Bobby Green, who he ended up getting knocked out by in about 30 seconds. But apart from that, he's been able to get past everyone. And I'm going to pick him to win a decision over Diego Ferreira. Now, this isn't an easy fight. It's not a super confident pick because Diego Ferreira, he's been out-grappled multiple times before against multiple different opponents, so he's shown that he's not necessarily got the best takedown defense, and he is very dangerous on the feet. He put Michael Johnson out cold, and in his most recent fight, he absolutely destroyed Rembetski, beating from pillar to post in one of the most brutal wins of 2024. So it looks like he's kind of done a bit of a career turnaround. His takedown defense has slightly improved, even though it's not great, and he's an amazing striker, but I just believe that Grant Dawson's going to be able to take him down. Grant Dawson's faced grapplers before, he's faced strikers before, and it seems to be the same result every single time. It's him taking them down and mauling him. I can't see him getting a finish over Diego Ferreira, who's got decent jiu-jitsu, and obviously when it comes to the striking, that's where Diego Ferreira's got the best chance. But I just believe that Grant Dawson's going to take him down, control him, rack up the points, and he's going to win and then probably make it into the rankings after that win. But again, this is quite a good fight. Two of the best unranked 155ers. Diego Ferreira's coming off an impressive win. Grant Dawson, I think he does deserve a big fight after this. I know he lost to Bobby Green, but that's the only loss he's really had. The keys to victory for both of these guys. For Grant Dawson, it's simple. Take him down, maul him, and control him. Like it is in every single one of his fights, no matter the opponent, that seems to be his game plan. And for Diego Ferreira, It's, again, another simple game plan. Stay on the feet, knock him out on the feet because Grant Dawson has got a bit of a questionable chin, and threat submissions when taken down. He hasn't got bad Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, does Diego Ferreira. It's not like when he's on the ground, he's completely useless. So kind of threat the submissions. A lot easier said than done, but that would be the keys to victory for both of them. But I'm going to go with Grant Dawson by decision. Then we have Zachary Reese versus Azamat Bekoev. I think that's how you say his name now. It was supposed to be Cedric Damas versus Zachary Reese, but that's on 5 days' notice has now been changed to the LFA middleweight champion coming over to the UFC in Azamat Bekoev to fight on 5 days' notice with a record of 18-3. I'm not sure much about this Azamat Bekoev guy. I've done a bit of research, but I'm going to go with Zachary Reese to get a first-round knockout. Maybe that's a bit of a... Maybe the only reason I've really picked that is because, I mean, first of all, I need to pick a knockout. All my picks have been decisions so far, but more importantly, Zachary Reese is a dangerous guy, but you look at Azamat Bekoev, his most recent win was against a guy who's got a record of 19-10, so it's not like he's a champion in this really good promotion. LFA isn't really known to be the best promotion, and Zachary Reese is a dangerous guy. Only 1 decision win in his entire career, 5 knockout wins. He's had a couple brutal wins in his UFC career so far, and leading up to these UFC career was getting a bunch of first-round finishes, and his only loss is a slam KO to Cody Brundage in a fight that he was winning quite comfortably as well, so I think he's going to get the job done in this fight against Bekoev. I've looked at a couple of Bekoev's fights in LFA. He's a bit of a crafty striker. He's a bit slow on the feet, and his takedown offense isn't that good. He's not the best grappler despite his last name and what you'd expect from someone from Russia called Bekoev, but he's not the best grappler, and I feel like Zachary Reese has got a good jiu-jitsu base anyway, that even if he does get taken down or, you know, the grappling initiate started, I think he's got enough jiu-jitsu to kind of escape any grappling issues that Azamat could bring. But it's 5 days notice, and now he's facing Zachary Reese, who's got a full training camp. I think Zachary Reese will stop this fight early on, and he will pressure Azamat Bekoev and get a finish, whether it be by submission, whether it be by knockout. I trust the power of Zachary Reese. I'm going first round knockout against the newcomer, the LFA champion in Azamat Bekoev. Now, the keys to victory for both of these guys, for Zachary Reese, it's to take the fight into the later rounds. The only reason I say that, I know he predicted a first-round knockout, but Azamat Bekoev, he seems to gas out. I watched his title fight in LFA, and after the second round, he was completely gassed out. So taking it to the later rounds, especially with a guy who's fighting on 5 days' notice, it's probably the best opportunity you've got. Pick him apart on the feet, you're the way better striker. And when he does shoot a takedown, which is inevitable, they're not the most threatening takedowns, so look for submissions. And for Bekoev, it's to take him down, don't stand and trade, and mix the striking with the grappling, because grappling is your only real opportunity of winning this fight. But I'm going to go with Zachary Reese to win. Then we've got a fight between two ranked heavyweights with a very similar grappling style. Jailton Almeida taking on Sergei Spivak. I'm going Jailton Almeida to win this one by decision. That's quite a comfortable pick. I do believe that Jailton Almeida is one of the best grapplers in the heavyweight division. Sergei Spivak, I don't think he submits Sergei Spivak. Spivak's a good submission artist. It's definitely the toughest guy that Almeida has to face so far, apart from Curtis Blades. He's got good jiu-jitsu. He's coming off a submission win of Sergei Spivak, and he's kind of known for having this kind of judo / jiu-jitsu heavy style. So I can't really see Jailton Almeida finishing this fight, but I do think he will win just by simply out-grappling him. I think he's one of the best grapplers in the heavyweight division. He dominated and submitted Rosenstrike. He dominated Derek Lewis for 25 minutes. He submitted Alexander Romanov. He was even out wrestling Curtis Blades for their fight, which is impressive because Blades is known to be one of the best wrestlers. And before all that, he was on a complete tear in the UFC as well. So I believe that Jailton Almeida, if you take away maybe John Jones, he's probably the best wrestler in this division. And even though Sergei Spivak's got these grappling credentials, he's got a very similar game plan to Almeida. He wants to take the fight to the mat and get the submission. It's not going to work. We've seen Almeida against other grapplers before. He's going to maul Sergei Spivak, in my opinion. He's going to take him down, control him, could get a submission, but it's unlikely. The only real way I see Sergei Spivak winning this fight is if he can somehow pull off a Hail Mary submission against Jailton Almeida, which I guess he could do because Spivak's a good submission artist. He's more experienced in the UFC. Or if he somehow knocks him out on the feet, if he's able to keep the fight on the feet and, you know, walk forward with that pressure boxing style that he normally has when he's initiating clinches. But I trust Jailton Almeida. I think he's one of the best in the heavyweight division. I actually think he's probably the top 3 biggest test for Tom Aspinall. And even though stylistically this is quite a difficult fight, I'm going to pick him to win this one by decision. Now, the keys to victory for Jailton Almeida, it's to maul him as per usual. Same game plan every fight. Shoot double legs, don't clinch with him. If it comes to the clinch, that's where I'm probably going to favour Sergei Spivak. He does a really good job at getting people in the clinch and then tripping them up. So shoot double legs and be aware of his submission ability. He's not just a Romanov. He's not a Rosenstrike or a Derek Lewis without any submission arsenal. He's got decent submissions. And for Sergei Spivak, it's to pressure box and clinch. He's definitely the better striker out of him and Almeida. So pressure boxing is his best opportunity on the feet and to clinch. I think that's where he does his best work. And if he takes you down /when, look for the submissions. Like I said, Spivak's a good submission artist. But I'm going to go with Jailton Almeida to win this one. Then we've got got one of the biggest prospects in the UFC, the biggest one in the bantamweight division, Payton Talbott, taking on Raoni Barcelos for his biggest test in his UFC career so far. But I'm going to pick Payton Talbott to win this one by knockout in the second round. I don't think it's going to be another 20-second knockout against Yanis Nakamura, but he did look really good in that fight and is obviously known for absolutely destructing Cameron Simon when they're fought. He's a really good striker, is Payton Talbott, and I'm excited to see what he does. He's going to be taking on Raoni Barcelos, who I know he's been KO'd brutally by Ulanbekov before, and he hasn't got the best chin in his old age and everything. This does seem like a bit of a fight to kind of push Payton Talbott. He's a good wrestler. He's not a bad wrestler. He's shown that he's got good jiu-jitsu and good grappling before that. He's his main game plan. I mean, he was able to out-grapple Said Nurmagomedov. And if we know anything about Payton Talbott and his weaknesses, it tends to be against wrestlers. When he fought Nick Aguirre on the in the UFC, in his UFC debut, he struggled with wrestling early on. If you go back to his fights in the Contender Series, he struggled with grappling a little bit as well. So if there's a flaw to Payton Talbott, it seems to be grapplers. So I think Raoni Barcelos has a slim chance of, maybe out-wrestling Payton Talbott and getting an underdog win, but I think it's very unlikely. I think Payton Talbot will deal with it, will weather on the early storm that Barcelos is going to bring with the grappling and eventually pick him apart and get the finish in that either late in the first round or in the second round. Is going to catch Barcelos with a big shot, drop him, and then go for the finish, and I believe Payton Talbot will be successful. Again, Payton Talbot might struggle with the grappling, but Barcelos, he's past his sell-by date now. He's quite up there in age. A bit chitty as well. He's basically a prospect getting fed, or a veteran getting fed to a prospect. I think it's going to be quite a comfortable win to Payton Talbot. I'm picking him to win by second round knockout. Now, the keys to victory for both of these guys, for Payton Talbot, it's to keep the fight standing. Goes without saying, he's a really good striker. Keep it standing. Walk him down and pick him apart so his takedowns are less effective. And just don't do dumb shit. I've seen him in his Contender Series fights. Don't be doing backflips when you get in the clinch. Don't be out there showboating. Barcelos is your biggest test so far. Unless you're absolutely styling on him like Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar style, just stick to the game plan. Don't do dumb shit and put yourself in bad positions. So for Barcelos, it's to stay defensively sound. You're facing a very good striker, a very dangerous striker at that. So stay defensively sound, clinch as much as possible, and try and take the fight to the ground or just rally up control time. Even if he's just taking Payton Talbot's back while Payton Talbot stood up, anything to kind of get the control time and initiate the grappling would be the game plan for Barcelos. But I'm going to pick Payton Talbot by brutal first round or second round finish. Then we've got Bogdan Guskov versus Billy Elakena. I think that's how you say his name. He's a newcomer to the UFC. Obviously, it was supposed to be Johnny Walker versus Bogdan Guskov, which is now cancelled, and we've got another short notice fight with Billy Elakena versus Bogdan Guskov. Billy Elakena, he's only had a couple of fights in his MMA career so far. He's coming off a first round finish in LXF. I've never even heard of that promotion, but he's coming off a first round finish, which is why the UFC have brought him over. But I mean, it's just a free win for Bogdan Guskov. I'm picking him to win by first round KO. Now, one thing I will say about Bogdan Guskov, I don't really see if there's much relevance in this fight, but he does lose. He tends to lose fights and then pick up a win. Like in both of his wins so far in the UFC, he's struggled and kind of been hittable early on, and then he's come back with a big knockout because of his power. He's shown it in multiple fights now where he'll kind of lose the fight early on and he won't do the best on the feet, and then he'll just come back with a brutal knockout. But he's a very dangerous guy. 14 wins by KO, 2 by submission, none by decision. Very, very powerful guy. He's a bit of a KO merchant, is Bogdan Guskov. He kind of relies on his power because technically and defensively he's not the best. But if there's anybody that's going to stop Bogdan Guskov, I doubt Billy Elakena, who's 7-1 on short notice, is going to be the guy to do it. So I think Bogdan Guskov's going to knock him out fairly early on in the first round. Probably better from a technical standpoint as well, considering this guy hasn't really fought in any crazy promotions. I'm going Bogdan Guskov to knock him out in the first round and get another highlight reel. And maybe then we can see the reschedule between him and Johnny Walker. But the keys to victory for both of these guys, for Bogdan Guskov, is to pressure him, overwhelm him, land the shot, and don't be defensively dumb like you normally are, because you never know. There's that slim chance that maybe this Elakena guy tends to hit hard and he can crack Bogdan Guskov, but again, very unlikely. In fact, Billy Elakena, it's just be constantly moving. Don't be ploddy. Don't be a highlight reel type of guy. Make the fight make Bogdan Guskov have to work for the win. Be constantly moving. Make the fight ugly. Initiate the clinch. Don't be standing and trading with him. I hope that you can land a shot when he's open. Like I said, he's a very open guy. He's Bogdan Guskov. If you can land a shot when he's least expecting it, that's your best opportunity of getting a knockout win. But essentially just survive as long as possible is the game plan for Billy Elakena. Then we've got Kevin Holland versus Reinier de Ridder. I'm going to say this is probably one of the most interesting matchups on the card, because I've heard a lot of people saying that they think Reinier de Ridder is going to beat Kevin Holland. I've heard a lot of people saying that they think Holland is going to beat de Ridder. Now, obviously, Reinier de Ridder, I know that he's a former double, he's a former double champion in ONE FC, comes over to the UFC and he faces Gerald Meerschaert, but he didn't look good in that fight. Gerald Meerschaert had a lot of success on the feet. It was a very, very close fight that he barely won by getting a submission after they were both absolutely gassed out in the third round. It wasn't a good look for a UFC debut. It wasn't like a Bo Nickel debut or, you know, how we normally see prospects debut in the UFC. He didn't look like he was really ranked worthy in the UFC. And on top of that, if you look at Reina Derrida, he's shocking on the feet. Terrible striker, terrible gas tank. I feel like he's got everything that it makes to become a Kevin Holland highlight reel in this fight. Kevin Holland's a dangerous striker. I know he doesn't really display it a lot recently. He's kind of got this kind of mindset that he doesn't care, and whenever he starts to lose a fight, he kind of throws it all out the window, but he's a dangerous striker. He's knocked out some pretty respectable names before, and he's got a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt as well. I know that's not really, you know, a massive credential to have anymore in 2024, but he has got that, and he has, in his last 2 wins, he has submitted, obviously, Mikal and Martin Kiesa, another submission artist, so he's got a decent submission game. I think Kevin Holland's going to keep the fight standing and pick apart and knock out Reina Derrida. Reina Derrida nearly got dropped by Gerald Mearshot. I think Kevin Holland, being the striker he is definitely going to have the upper hand in this fight. The only way I see Reina Derrida winning is if he can somehow take him down. But even then, he's not got the best wrestling. It's mainly the jiu-jitsu that he has rather than the wrestling. I think Kevin Holland's going to keep the fight on the feet, pick him apart and get the knockout just like he did against Marco Chiesa. But instead of getting the submission, he's going to get the knockout. The only concern I have with Kevin Holland is I swear he got his rib broken against Roman Dolidze, and that was only in October. Now, he is back pretty soon. Early January from October after breaking your rib is quite questionable, but either way, I think Kevin Holland's going to get the knockout in this fight. The keys to victory for both of these guys, for Kevin Holland, is to bully him on the feet. You're the way better striker. And if you do want to get the best game plan, it's to survive early on. Survive early on, because Reina Derrida's gas tank is absolutely terrible. So if you can take it into the second or the third round, you've got your best chance of getting a highlight reel finish. And again, don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything stupid like you normally do. Just focus in this fight, get the win, and then you can focus on doing stupid shit when you face guys you know you can't beat. And then Reina Derrida, it's to be aware of the gas tank. You can't have another Gerald Mearshot fight where you gassed after the second round. Stay defensively sound because you're facing a dangerous striker, and just do anything to initiate the grappling and clinch. And to be honest, do it as early as you can. Do it in the first round. Get the grappling going early before you get finished. So those are the keys to victory, but I'm going Kevin Holland by knockout. Then we've got Beneil Dariush returning to the octagon to take on one of the lightweight's best names or biggest stars right now. Maybe not biggest stars, but one of the most likable guys in the division, Renato Moicano. I didn't want to do this, but I'm going to go with Beneil Dariush to win by decision. I'm not just trying to be different and go with Beneil Dariush and pretend that I know stuff about him because, you know, he's taking a bunch of time off, but I really do feel like from stylistically, Beneil Dariush is a really bad fight for Renato Moicano. I know he's coming off of two knockout losses in the first round to Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira, but are we acting like those guys wouldn't do the exact same thing to Renato Moicano had they fought Moicano? He's lost to the two best, or two of the top three best in the lightweight division right now. And before that, when he fought Gamrot, he was bullying Gamrot. He dropped him multiple times on the feet. He did alright in the grappling situations. He made Gamrot look very beatable. And before that, he was on this huge winning streak where he displayed both good knockout power on the feet and submission ability in the grappling department. He's very well-rounded, is Beneil Dariush. And he's not just like a Benoit saying that he's well-rounded, where we think he's well-rounded, but then when he faces someone good, he's terrible, because he's shown that against good fighters. Like I said, he beat Tony Ferguson when Ferguson was not completely washed. He beat Diego Ferreira. He beat Mateus Gamrot as well. So he's a very well-rounded guy, is Beneil Dariush. And look at Renato Moicano. He got dropped in the first round and nearly finished against Jailton Turner. Rafael Fiziev knocked him out. I mean, it was only a few years ago when an old guy in Rafael dos Santos was absolutely battering Moicano, so you can't even use the age thing against Beneil Dariush. I think this is a really favourable matchup for Beneil Dariush. I think he keeps the fight standing. He's got solid takedown defense, which he already showed against better wrestlers in Gamrot, and he's going to completely piece up Renato Moicano. Moicano's definitely improved massively, both with his stand-up and his takedown entries, but this is a bad matchup unless Beneil Dariush is completely washed since taking this time off. But if the Beneil Dariush, even remotely the Beneil Dariush that shows up against Gamrot, shows up in this fight, Renato Moicano's in for a long night. I'm picking him to win by decision. I don't think he gets the finish over Moicano, but I do think Dariush will get the stoppage. Now, the keys to victory for Beneil Dariush, it's to bully Moicano on the feet. He's the way better striker from both a technical and a danger standpoint. Don't be wary about your chin. I know you've been knocked out in your last two fights, but Moicano's stand-up sucks. He hasn't got any threat on the feet, and do him like you did Gamrot. And for Renato Moicano, it's to take him down and maul him as per usual, like you did to Benoit Saint-Denis and Jailton Turner. Do be careful on the feet. You know, I know you're not facing necessarily a striker, but Dariush is definitely the better stand-up fighter. And just keep the pressure going. Keep the pressure grappling. Make sure he's constantly on his back foot and consistently shoot takedowns. But I really do feel like the underdog Beneil Dariush is going to be the one winning this guy. I think he's definitely got the upper hand in this fight. And then we've got a massive fight between two former champions, two Alex Pereira victims. Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. I really hope Jamal Hill loses this fight just so we can see another one of his Twitter rants and we can see what his excuse is going to be this time around. But it's quite a tough one to pick because you've got a dangerous striker who's been knocked out by Alex Pereira versus a dangerous striker who's been knocked out by Alex Pereira. I was expecting these guys to fight a long time ago. We're finally getting the fight. But I feel like recently, Yuri Prochazka has been kind of getting disrespected. The way people are talking about Yuri Prochazka is how you should be talking about Johnny Walker. They describe Yuri the exact same way you describe Johnny Walker. And you look at the past couple of wins. If you exclude Alex Pereira from both of these guys' recent fights, and you look at their past 4 wins, Yuri has finished Alexander Rakic, finished Glover Teixeira, finished Dominic Reyes, and finished Volkan Oezdemir, all in brutal fashion. Jamal Hill went to a decision with Glover Teixeira, finished Thiago Santos, finished Jimmy Crute, and finished Johnny Walker. Already, not yet, as only Yuri had more impressive wins, but he's done it against much more impressive opponents. So, from a resume perspective, Yuri's looked way better. He's got way more experience than Jamal Hill as well. And I just think he's a very dangerous guy. The only reason I see Yuri losing this fight is, I mean, it's not the only reason I see him losing this fight, and it's a very big if. But he tends to walk around with his hands down with this kind of weird defenseless style. And obviously a powerful guy in Jamal Hill who likes to counter guys like him. This could be dangerous for Yuri. I can see him doing some dumb shit with his hands down and Jamal countering him. But I'm going to go with Yuri to win by TKO in the second. I believe he's a lot more dangerous than Hill. I think, at least from like a danger standpoint, he's much better than Jamal Hill. He's done it against much better opponents. And if you take away his losses to Payton, and even in the first fight with Payton, he was actually making that a competitive fight. So I'm going to go with Yuri by TKO in the second. The keys to victory for both of these guys. For Yuri, it's you have to stay defensively sound. I know we say this in every fight, and a lot of the time he comes back with a win, but you can't just keep your hands down and have no leg kick defense like you did against Rakic and Payton. You want to have at least some defense. Put Hill on his back foot, that's where he's his least dangerous, and just stay weird. I'm not saying stay dumb, I'm not saying stay defensively unsound, I'm just saying stay weird because, you know, that's his roots. And for Jamal Hill, it's to capitalize on his weird style and clock him on the feet. I can see, like I said, Yuri having his hands down and leaning in a bit too much, and I can see Jamal Hill countering with like a 1-2 and absolutely peppering him. So yeah, just capitalize on his weird style and keep Yuri on his back foot. I really do feel like whoever's on the back foot in this fight is going to have the disadvantage. So for Jamal Hill, like he's done to every single one of his other opponents when he gets the knockout win, keep them on their back foot. And that's the keys to victory. But I really do feel like Yuri will get the win in this fight. And then we've got the co-main event for the title fight in the bantamweight division. Merab Dvalishvili taking on Umar Nurmagomedov. Now, I've already done a bit of a breakdown of this yesterday where I did a bit of a skills breakdown between Umar and Merab. And obviously the main event as well, which I'll get onto. But this is a really tough fight to pick because Umar Nurmagomedov, he's 18-0, undefeated, trained under Abdul Manap, trained from Khabib's gym, got a really good win over Corey Sandhagen, but it's not like he's facing a Normale or a guy that I'd favour him against. He's facing Merab, who's another really good wrestler, but I've just got to go with Nurmagomedov to win this one by decision. I don't have the best logic. I've got a feeling that Nurmagomedov's going to get this one done. I just feel like from a standpoint, I just can't see Umar Nurmagomedov losing. He's a very, very good wrestler. I mean, I can't see either of these guys getting out-wrestled. I can't see Umar getting out-wrestled. I can't see Merab getting taken down. I just think this fight's going to stay predominantly on the feet because they're both going to cancel it out. And I think when it comes to a striking standpoint, Nurmagomedov's way better than Merab. Way better striker than Merab, and he's displayed it in most of his fights already. Even against Sandhagen, a polished striker, he looked good. I'm really impressed by the striking of Nurmagomedov. I think he's top 5 best strikers in the division. Merab isn't that. On top of that as well, even if Merab takes him down, it's not like when Merab takes you down, you're done for. He usually lets you back up. He likes to take people down, and then within 30 seconds, you're back up on the feet. Whereas Nurmagomedov, when he takes you down, he likes to keep you down for the majority of the round. So I think from a wrestling standpoint, Nurmagomedov's much more difficult to deal with. He's a much better striker than Merab. I'm picking Nurmagomedov to win this one by decision. I think he keeps the fight standing, and he outstrikes Merab for the majority of the fight. Maybe if Merab can take down Nurmagomedov, somehow that's where he's got his best opportunity. I just think it's really unlikely. We've also seen Merab lose in the UFC before, and even have danger in the UFC before when he got clocked by Henry Cejudo, took that body kick from Sean O'Malley, couldn't even take down Jose Aldo as well. Not that that's a bad thing, because Aldo's got great takedown defense, but it's just another thing to mention. So I'm going to go with Nurmagomedov to win. I think Nurmagomedov keeps the fight standing, outstrikes Merab, and gets the win in this fight. Now, the keys to victory for Merab, it's to keep that heavy pace. He's had one 5-round fight against one ranked opponent, his Umar Nurmagomedov. You've definitely got the stamina advantage. You've definitely got that 5-round advantage. If you can overwhelm Nurmagomedov with the pace and the 5-round stamina that you've got, that's your best case scenario. Offensively wrestle, keep him on his back foot, and don't strike. You don't want to be standing with Nurmagomedov because you're probably going to get finished if you do. So offensively wrestle, keep him on his back, and try and try and keep the takedowns going. And for Nurmagomedov, it's to keep the fight on the feet and out striking, which I think he will be able to do with because of how good his wrestling is, both offensively and defensively. But yeah, keep the fight standing. And if you are going to take him down, which I think he should do at least a couple times in the fight, use your striking to set the takedowns up. And he does a really good job of this. Watch his fight with Begs at Almacan and a couple of his other fights. Feint up top and then shoot a takedown. I don't need to tell Uman Nurmagomedov this, not that I'm some sort of expert, but he does it in every fight anyway, and he should do it in this fight especially. So I'm picking Umar to win by decision. Not a super confident pick, but I just feel like he's going to get the job done. And then for the main event, Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan. If there's one guy in the lightweight division who's going to beat Islam Makhachev, it's going to be Arman Tsarukyan. But I just don't think this is going to be the time for Tsarukyan. I'm going to go with Islam Makhachev to win a decision as well. It's a tough fight to call because Tsarukyan really is talented, and like I said, from a stylistic perspective, he is by far the most difficult fight for Islam in this division, but I just can't see anybody beating Islam. Like I said about the Merab and Umar fight, I did a bit of a breakdown of this fight yesterday where I talked about both their advantages and disadvantages, and I came to the conclusion that apart from maybe wrestling and athleticism, there isn't a single place in the fight where Tsarukyan has an advantage. I really believe that Makhachev's better everywhere the fight goes. If we go back to their first fight a couple of years ago, Tsarukyan was impressive. He made it a very back and forth fight with Islam, where he made it very back and forth, a very competitive fight until he eventually gassed out. But I just think Islam's unstoppable, and you can talk about the striking of Arman Tsarukyan and how he's got quite powerful striking, how he knocked out Benil Dariush and so, and he has got good striking. But Islam, I mean, if we look back to the Oliveira fight, Islam's performance even against Charles Oliveira was much better than Tsarukyan. He was outlanding Charles Oliveira, he dropped him on the feet. It was out wrestling him, was out grappling him, and then eventually got the submission. Whereas when it came to Arman Tsarukyan, he was the one who was getting threatened with the submissions. And apart from that, he was out wrestling Oliveira, but he didn't do anything significant on the feet. So Islam definitely had a much more impressive performance against Oliveira. We've also seen Tsarukyan not being able to get past Gamrot, another wrestler. I know that was a very close fight where people would have argued that Tsarukyan won, but when you're losing to the likes of Gamrot, that doesn't give me hope when you're facing a guy against Islam who's got equally as good wrestling and better striking. I just think all the balls are in Islam's court. I'm going to go with Islam Makhachev to win a decision. Of course, Tsarukyan has a chance of winning this fight, but it's Islam Makhachev. I just can't really pick against him. Now, the keys to victory for both of these guys, for Islam Makhachev, it's to offensively wrestle, try and take Arman Tsarukyan down, especially in the later rounds where we tend to see Tsarukyan kind of gas out a little bit, and try and keep the fight on the feet to break him. I do believe that Makhachev's the better striker, not to the point where he's like an Umar Nurmagomedov Merab situation where he's infinitely better, but I do think he's got the edge on the feet, so try and keep the fight standing but mix it up. And for Arman Tsarukyan, don't be afraid to offensively wrestle. I think wrestling is probably his best chance in this fight, and he's a good wrestler. Know that you can match him everywhere. You can match him in the wrestling, you can match him in the stand-up, so don't be intimidated if the fight's still standing. Don't be intimidated if he takes you down. And a dogfight. Islam tends to slow down when he's in a dogfight. We saw it when he was against Volkanovski. We saw it when he was against Dustin Poirier. So if you could do anything to make it a dogfight, that's probably your best chance of slowing down Islam Makhachev, but that would be the keys to victory. But I'm going to pick Islam Makhachev. Now, these are all my picks if we categorize them by high confidence, so I definitely think they're going to win. Medium confidence, so I think they're going to win, but I wouldn't necessarily bet on it. And then low confidence, where it's genuinely like nearly a 50-50 fight that I've just kind of gone with this certain fighter for whatever reason. Now, my high confidence picks are Islam Makhachev, Bogdan Guskov, Payton, Talbott, Jailton, Almeida, and Rinya Nakamura. My medium confidence picks are Uman Nurmagomedov, Benil Dariush, Kevin Holland, Grant Dawson, and Bernado Sopaj. And the picks that I've got low confidence in are Yuri Prohaska, Carol, Rosa, and Tagir, Ulanbekov. But that is my UFC 311 predictions, my full card predictions. Let me know your thoughts on this card. It's extremely stacked, in my opinion. One of the best cards we've had in a while. Definitely one of the best cards we've had in a while. Let me know your thoughts if you agree or disagree with the predictions. Thank you for watching.